Hello everyone, this is Denise Ozal. I will be sharing a summary of the discussions we held within Group 8 this week about forecasting. Before I jump into the discussion topics, I would like to give a little introduction to the subject. We are looking at a perspective from operations management and forecasting in that perspective is used to predict demand, profits, revenues, costs, productivity changes, and price. We will focus on forecasting demand within this chapter and why do we forecast the demand is to avoid the overstocking and understocking, which are both costly due to different reasons. Although there are advanced mathematical models for forecasting, successful forecasting often requires a good balance of science and intuition. There are a variety of forecasting techniques available, but the success really relies on using the right technique or the right combination of the techniques when possible. Common features of forecasting techniques are based on following. Past can provide a good prediction of future. None of them are perfect. It is easier to forecast a group of products rather than a specific product. And forecasting close future is easier than forecasting a far future. Steps for forecasting process is we'll start with determining the purpose, establishing a time horizon, obtaining data, selecting a forecasting technique, making the forecast, and monitoring the forecast. Okay, topic number 1. How qualitative methods is different from quantitative methods of forecasting. Well, qualitative forecasting methods are subjective methods based on judgment, opinion, and best guesses, while quantitative forecasting methods are based on known information or data. Stefan shared that during a training he took, he had learned the following. An effective leader needs to have a good balance between data and intuition. Results and data can somewhat tell a story, but they often fail to recognize some of the great work a team member may do to connect with a customer. Focusing too much on intuition, too, can be misleading. He said he often sees the team members who has positive influences to the other team members, but because they are mentoring and work is performed with patience, it doesn't necessarily mean that they do great. To support that intuition, you may sometimes need to look at the data. For example, a great member of the team who has positive influences on others, if you check on the data, may show some low attendance to the meetings or may have some major impact to the decisions that are taking place within the team. Topic number 2, how regression method is different from the series forecasting. While regression forecasting methods attempt to develop a mathematical relationship between demand and factors that cause the demand to behave the way it does. Time series forecasting, on the other hand, uses historical data that have accumulated over a period of time. When using time series forecasting, only one factor is used, which is the time. These methods assume that identifiable historical patterns or trends of demand over time will repeat themselves. Here is another example Stefan shared with us. Please go ahead and read it through. It's a great example. Thanks, Stefan. Which forecasting method we learned in this class makes more sense and why? While our team agreed that each forecasting method is applicable given different circumstances. Although I personally think that time series method is my favorite, I still acknowledge that how demand is going to evolve can get more complicated with different factors contributing, such as new technologies, norms, tariffs, or even natural disasters such as earthquake or hurricane. Faruk prefers linear trend forecasting and more specifically the mean absolute percentage error because it relies on an algorithm and he likes to justify more demand predictions. What does evaluating forecasts means? It means that we need to consider the accuracy of forecast. The accuracy of forecast is not going to be stable and it can change during the time. To evaluate the forecast methods, we need to calculate demand using multiple forecast theories and evaluate to pick up the most reliable one. How do we evaluate our forecasts? The difference between the forecast and the actual demand is called forecast error. A large degree of error might be an indicative of wrong forecasting method being used, or it needs to be adjusted by revising parameters. There are different features and forecasting errors can be calculated by different equations. One of them is mean absolute deviation, the other is mean absolute percentage deviation, the other is average error bias. In addition to that, cumulative error and average error are also used for forecasting purposes. To build upon my points, Samantha went further into detail about these calculations and provided some great equations for us. Please feel free to check this out. What does monitoring forecast mean? This is, I believe, our last topic. Well, forecast needs to be monitored to determine whether it is still accurate or not. There are several ways to monitor forecast error over time to make sure that the forecast is performing correctly. Forecasts can go out of control and start providing inaccurate forecasts results for several reasons, such as change in trend, the unanticipated appearance of a cycle, or an irregular variation. Samantha also shares some examples of errors that could occur during forecasting, which can be listed as incorrectly identifying the relationship between variables, not recognizing trends in demand, not updating forecasting assumptions and techniques, projecting past trends into future, reacting to random or spatial cause variations, relying on biased information sources, or using an inefficient number of data sources. That being said, this is the summary of the discussions we held this week. And if you have any questions, please feel free to share it. Thank you so much.